thank you all very much for joining. Really appreciate you joining our webinar this afternoon. It's quite exciting to be able to update you about some of the funding changes that have happened recently, which we're hoping will enable a more flexible approach to apprenticeships that actually will benefit the sector in terms of how they can be delivered and what that means to you operationally. My name is Brian Kitson. For those of you that don't know me, I am the head of apprenticeships here at Channel Training. I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues, Caroline Young, who's head of programs and quality assurance. And for those of you that haven't met Jim, Jim's our MD, and he set up Channel. When did you set up Channel? Years and years ago.
Long time ago, yeah, 2012.
We've been going a reasonable amount of time now, and Jim's kind of driven that specifically for the sector over that period of time. The aim of this webinar is obviously to provide an update, but at the same time, we're really keen on make it as interactive as possible. So if you've got any questions at any point, let us know. Just interject. You can put a message in the chat. Caroline's going to be having a look at that. And we'll have stops at regular points just to kind of see if there's anything that anyone wants to talk about. So hopefully by the end of it should give you a good idea about kind of what it might look like moving forwards. I think the starting point, obviously, some of you may know Channel, some of you may not know Channel. Just a very quick synopsis. So obviously, as Jim said, we've been around since 2012. We are a specialist apprenticeship training provider that specialises in outdoor learning. So all we do is outdoor learning. That's our main focus. Our tutors have all got a background in outdoor learning, having worked in centres and delivered training and all that sort of stuff. So they're very qualified and knowledgeable in what they do, which enables them to be able to support the apprentices and support yourselves because they understand what's going on. We work with over 40 outdoor learning organisations right across the remit, from large multi-site providers through to schools, charitable organisations, right across the piece, supporting over 120 apprentices. So we've got quite a lot of apprentices from a range of different backgrounds that we're working with all across the country. And Ofsted rates us as a good provider, which is very nice of them. And part of that is because obviously we've got a very, very good pass rate, but more importantly, a distinction rate of over 60%, because it's really important that we embed the learning for the people that we work with. So a little bit about Channel. And what I wanted to start with, because some people will know about apprenticeships, some people won't, I'm going to give a very quick overview of where we are at the moment in terms of what apprenticeships are, how they're funded and all that sort of thing, to give some context before we move on to talking about what the changes are and what they actually mean. So an apprenticeship essentially is a job that enables people to be employed whilst they learn. So it gives them knowledge, skills and behaviours that are relevant to the job that they're doing. From an employer's perspective, what that enables you to do is get the right people in, doing the right job, and have some structured training that enables them to get to a specific standard over the course of their training. And apprenticeships work exceptionally well within the outdoor sector, because you can essentially take somebody that doesn't know much but has a desire to do something and take them on a real journey that enables them to get to a point where they're very, very skilled and talented and able to deliver, which is really, really important. And you can then take that on with regards to level 5 and the progression that they have further on in the career. So apprenticeships really go from level 2 to level 7. So you can kind of start at the beginning of your career and end up doing a master's all through the apprenticeship route. Key points, really, you can start from 16. So we have got some apprentices at 16. A lot of employers will take them from 18 onwards because of safeguarding. They are employed, so you need to be able to pay them the national minimum wage for apprenticeships. And they are on a contract for the duration of the apprenticeship. So historically, the apprenticeship has been a minimum of 12 months and includes on-the-job and off-the-job training. So a proportion of the time is spent on the job, actually delivering it. And historically, 20% of the time was spent off the job, either with a training provider or at college, where they're learning the skills needed to be able to do that. That is changing, and we will talk about that a little bit later on. So just wait for the slide to catch up. Each apprenticeship is, and there are 700 different standards. I Googled it this morning, and you can essentially do apprenticeships in most professions. I didn't realize that you could actually be a nuclear reactor desk engineer, a poultry technician, steeplejack. Lots of different professions have essentially come together to define what are the standards that are needed to be able to deliver that job, and what are the skills that you need, the knowledge and the behaviours to be at a recognisable standard to be able to deliver that job. So back in 2018, a group of people within the outdoor sector, a group of employers, training providers, the Institute for Outdoor Learning came together, and they defined the standard for level 3 program, and which is the outdoor activity instructor, and the level 5 program, which is the outdoor learning specialist. So they've been designed for the sector, by the sector. So it's not somebody kind of telling us what we need to do. We as a sector have kind of looked at what are the key components that are needed in able to create those competencies at the different levels, and those standards are then published and produced. And when people go through the program, they're following that syllabus that then goes to an endpoint assessment at the end of it. I think the amazing thing is I've seen, and within the outdoor sector, I've been working with apprentices for over 15 years, both from an employment perspective and a training provider. I've seen apprentices come in and do absolutely amazing things in a very short period of time, in terms of developing their personal competencies, but also in terms of their technical competencies, their ability to work with groups, their confidence, and their really, really strong transferable skills that enable them to either progress within the sector. And I've seen people go on and manage centres and become specialists in specific disciplines, or move into other sectors, for example, education, training, youth work, paramedics. And my favourite one is someone that went on to become an air traffic controller, because the transferable skills from doing an outdoor activity instructor in terms of managing risk, being calm under pressure, understanding health and safety, communicating effectively, are the same things that you need. So the transferable skills you get are really, really useful. The standards are based around having skills, knowledge and behaviours. The skills are the activity delivery, the NGB qualifications. The knowledge is the underpinning things that you need in order to be an instructor, the theory that underpins it, and the behaviours are how you develop professionally, how your professional standards and competence are in terms of what you do. Looking at how apprenticeships are funded, ultimately apprenticeships are funded through the government, either through the levy if your payroll is over £3 million, or if you don't pay the levy, the government will fund it with a contribution of 5%, which works out at £600 for level 3, for example. The good thing is, though, is that for employers that don't pay the levy, if your apprentices are up to 21, they'll pay all aspects of the training, so they'll cover all the costs. Or if they're up to 24 and they've got an EHCP or have been in care, the government will pay all of that. There are also extra payments from the government available of up to £1,000, depending on what the duration is for 16 to 18-year-olds and people 19 plus with the HCPs. And importantly, there are no NI contributions for apprentices under 25. So that's kind of an overview, really, of apprenticeships and how they're funded and stuff like that. I think the key thing that we're all looking at the moment is what are the changes? What's actually happening that's going to make a difference now? And there are two key changes. The two key changes are the duration of the apprenticeship. So historically, like I said, apprenticeships have been a minimum of a 12-month program. So you've done a 12-month program, and then you do your endpoint assessment, which is the assessment of what you've learned over that period of time in month 13. That has now changed so that the minimum duration is now 8 months and not 12 months. Okay. The standard is still the same. So the standard which has been designed is still based on a 12-month program, but actually that can be compressed to be done from 8 months. You could do it in 9, 10, 11, 12 months, whatever you want, but actually the standard is still the same. So the quality doesn't go down, it stays at the same level it's been. It's just you can do it in a shorter amount of time. The other thing that has changed is the off-the-job training. So off-the-job training is the bit that you have to do around the non-work bit. So it's about the bits that you're learning. It's about the picking up the knowledge, skills and behaviours. It's around activity training. It's about understanding some of the theory and stuff like that. That historically has been 20% of the time. Okay, so that has been allocated as 20% of the duration of the apprenticeship. That is now changing to a minimum number of hours. So level 3 outdoor activity instructor, and these have been set by Skills England. Skills England are the body that oversee apprenticeships. The minimum number of hours for the level 3 outdoor activity instructor is now 276 hours. And for level 5, it's 535 hours. So you can do an apprenticeship in 8 months, but you have to make sure that you've done a minimum of 276 hours. Theoretically, you could do a level 5 in that amount of time, but you'd have had to have done 535 hours of off-the-job training, which works out at over half your time just spent training in that period of time. So it's not especially viable, but it demonstrates that there is far more increased flexibility in how apprenticeships are now able to be delivered. So before we move on to the next bit in terms of how does this actually work in practice, has anybody got any questions or anything that they want to talk about at the moment with regards to what we've discussed so far? Jim, Caroline, is there anything that you want to add at this point at all?
No, you did say that the recommended duration for level 3 is still the standard is 12 months, and I was just going to add in the recommended duration for the level 5 was 24 months if people wanted a sort of a picture of what the recommendation was. As Brian says, you could do it in 8 months, but I would be amazed to get those number of hours done in the 8 months, but it's feasible.
It's a very valid point, Caroline.
Yeah, there is an element to the flexibility, isn't there? And you know, to do a level 5 in 8 months would mean something like 25 hours a week of off the job training. There wouldn't be any time left to do the job. So I mean, clearly there are common sense limits to this, and what we're trying to do with this, and the brilliant thing about it is it just adds flexibility. It doesn't add any shortcuts or any easy wins or any way of getting an apprenticeship without doing any work or anything weird like that. It's literally just adds a bit of flexibility. I mean, you can fit into a 12-month or 24-month operational calendar a lot more easily. You know, that's the main thing.
I think a key phrase that Skills England and DFE are using are realistic training expectations. So, you know, make it realistic as to what you can do, and then fit that with your centre model and how your centre works out. Anyway, more later. Sorry, I'm stealing Brian's thunder.
And I think that's kind of the bit to So that's kind of an overview of, and I appreciate it's a whistle-stop tour of apprenticeships and where we've been and where we are now. I think the key bit now is really about what does that actually mean. So in terms of what does it mean and how can we support that, as Caroline's just said, it's the same program. So we are delivering the same standard that was set by the sector, that is proven, that works, that is used extensively at the moment. It's just been made more flexible. So you can do it, and we've put 9 months here because that includes the endpoint assessment, because you've got to count that in. But you can do it from 9 months to 18 months for level 3. You can do it, from you could do it from 9 months to 24 months for level 5. We can now be more flexible in working with employers to design a training model that's aligned to your organisation. There's still the added value skills courses and the NGB courses that we're able to provide. And hopefully what that then means is that you get even better value for money, because you're not tied to a static model that says you must start at this point and finish at this point. You can flex it more appropriately to your operational calendar, which is, I think, really, really powerful. So kind of how does that work in reality? So looking at apprenticeships, you look at what's your ideal duration? How long do you want it to work? Based on how do you operate? How do you deploy and utilize your staff team? When are your peak periods and all that sort of stuff? Because we recognise the fact that we operate in a seasonal environment. You then look at the training model. So you've got 276 or 535 hours to do. Do you want to do that gradually over a period of 12 months? Do you want to look at block training that can front load some of the learning? Do you want to look at blocks over a period of time? It's much more flexible because you're not having to average out 20% over the time. You can front load the training now, and that is agreed within the funding rules. So you can then build the model against where your peaks and your troughs are, because it may be that actually at the beginning of the year it's a lot quieter. You might have some time at Easter that's a bit quieter. There may be a slot at May half term that works. There could be some time in the summer. So there are periods where you could plan in and look at when the job training is. You recruit the apprentices, establish how much knowledge they've got, and make sure that you understand what the needs are. We create the apprenticeship plan and then start the apprenticeship. In terms of what we do, we'll work to understand your operational needs. We can then design and plan an apprenticeship that fits your workflow and fits the way that you operate. Recruitment perspective, we can then support the recruitment through adverts on the IOL website, on Indeed, through the UCAS and various other websites like that. We'll support with initial assessments, making sure that people have got, they are eligible, that we understand whether there's any additional needs that they need support with regards to functional skills, etc., etc. We'll then work out and confirm the program to make sure that it works from the employer and individual perspective, and then we'll support with the induction and onboarding. So it's a kind of partnership approach where we work together to make sure that we are delivering with you and almost designing a bespoke apprenticeship based on how you as an organisation function, operate, and where your peaks and troughs are. So in terms of kind of what it looks like and what are the component parts, there's a range of online training modules and knowledge questions and tasks that the apprentice does, along with distinction tasks. There are then a number of on-site visits that look at observations, how they're actually performing in the workplace, and getting them ready for their endpoint assessment. There's a continuous learning cycle. You can see that plan, do, review, reflect, old Kolb in there that they're going through, because a lot of what we're looking at is based around reflective practice and supporting them to be able to develop. They're learning personal skills and gaining NGB qualifications, doing their off-the-job training, and at the same time learning by doing the job. And we're now looking at 8 months to minimum 8 months to, and it's now being called Gateway to Completion. And then the apprenticeship assessment, which is the new terminology for endpoint assessment, because DFE like to change things on a regular basis. So they've changed the terminology. That's kind of the process that we go through. So what might it look like? So a 12-month program, for example, typically it's going to start at any point during the year because it runs for 12 months. So it kind of finishes roughly when it starts. The off-the-job training gets spread across the year. Obviously, it'll be slightly front-loaded because that's the nature of training when you're starting a new role. You'll map elements of it against the operational training calendar. There'll be a mix of tutor visits, our webinars, the online learning through the one file suite that we've got, along with the skills course package that we have, looking at a range of different qualifications, and I'll talk about them in a minute, from first aid through to paddle sports, etc., etc. And then average off-the-job training per week is about 6.5 hours, and then at the end of the period, you then do the apprenticeship assessment. So it's very similar to what we're offering at the moment. A 10-month program potentially would start January time. So you start at the beginning of the year, and you look to spread the off-the-job training across the year, but actually it would be slightly front-loaded in months 1 and 2, because January, February typically are a bit quieter. So you'd look to front-load about 80 hours of off-the-job training, probably through block training at the start of the year. Again, it's mapped against the operational calendar, so you can put components in and we can schedule bits in when it's not quite so busy. It's the same mix of tutor visits, webinars, and online learning, but actually the average hours once you've done that front-loaded block training comes down quite substantially. So on a monthly basis, there's less to do, and then your apprenticeship assessment would take place in November. So you can see a program that starts in January and ends in November, and is an ideal program for an organisation that has business throughout the year, but just has a much quieter period, kind of December time, where typically centres are a lot quieter. And then an 8-month program. So typically, I would imagine something like this starting February, March. It would be predominantly cohort based. So we'd be looking at working with cohorts for this, because actually it is quite heavily compressed in terms of the amount of time, because you've got 4 months less. So there's a lot more to get in during the same period of time. So the off-the-job training would be a lot more front-loaded in months 2, with very specific block training scheduled for quieter periods. So we typically be looking, and where we've mapped these programs, we'd be looking at kind of 140 hours over the first couple of months. So that would be a couple of weeks a month for the first couple of months in terms of the training. You then map the rest of it against the operational calendar. And then in terms of what we do, we would be helping with delivering the block training as part of the induction process, tutor visits, the webinars, the online learning, all the stuff that we do at the moment. But we would help make sure that actually it was on track over the first couple of months. And then you'd be looking at doing the assessment in October, November, an average of about 4 hours per week off the job training once you've done the initial stuff, which means that actually come June, July, there's a little bit less to be done during peak period because a lot of it's been front loaded. So that's kind of an example of different programs. Now, there's no reason that we couldn't look at tailoring this based on individual organizations. This is kind of an example program. These are example programs that we've put together. I've spoken to a number of employers over the last month or so, all of whom are slightly different in how it may impact them, because some organizations actually are really busy during the summer holiday and Easter time, and therefore that's not an appropriate time, but they have quieter periods elsewhere. So this is all about, and it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, this is about flexibility. This is about how do we work together to create a program that is going to support you as an organization and your apprentices as learners to actually get the most out of the program in the time that they've got, making sure that it still meets the really important quality indicators that we have to be able to achieve, and we still want to beat our 60% distinction rate that we currently have. So the quality has to be there. So this isn't about dumbing anything down. This isn't about taking anything out. All these programs have the same amount of off-the-job training. All these programs have the same component parts. It's just they're delivered in a slightly different way. Does that make sense? Any questions on that so far?
Can you do this absolutely bespoke and say, well, actually, I want to do 11 months. So, can this be a completely bespoke timetable that you want to put in place? So
there are people that we've spoken to, and we're putting together 11-month programs for them.
Oh, bro. And the EPA is part, and it's not that it's called EPA anymore, but the assessment process is part of it.
Yes, in terms of that. So with an 8-month program, the assessment or the apprenticeship assessment would be in month 9.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you do an 8-month learning program, and month 9 would be your EPA. Or sorry, what was called the EPA? Sorry, Caroline. I get told off by Caroline in a minute for using the wrong terminology.
Yeah. That's fine.
It starts with how long you want to offer a contract for. So if you want to offer a contract for 11 months, you want a 10-month training program and 1 month for apprenticeship assessment at the end.
Okay, that's brilliant.
And what's been really interesting from talking to employers is lots of employers are looking at different ways, and they're looking at it in terms of what's best for them as an organization, what best fits their learners, how do they get continuity for the next year, etc., etc. So what's really good is it isn't the one size fits all, you have 12 months or nothing. This actually means that actually you can look at it based on a seasonal operating model and go, how do we make this work for us? Which I think has always been one of the challenges. And I know that when the Trailblazer group first set this up in 2018, it was one of the key concerns and challenges about how do we make this work. So cool. In terms of things like skills courses, I just thought I'd mention them because they are a value add that we offer as part of our apprenticeship package. So there are a range of different courses that enable that counters off the job training, as well as being able to support the development of instructors. And it's all the way through from NGB courses, skills courses to support initial development, through to things like safeguarding, learning beyond the classroom, and first aid. Those courses that underpin what you need to know in order to be an instructor. And I think the other thing that it's worth touching on are some of the changes to functional skills that have happened recently, which is really important, because functional skills has always been a barrier to apprenticeships in the outdoors, because a lot of people come into the outdoors that don't have functional skills, and they come into the outdoors because they haven't got functional skills, because actually a lot of what they're doing is dealing with people. They don't have to do lots of reading, writing, etc., etc. So up until February this year, you had to have level 2 functional skills regardless of age, to be able to pass the apprenticeship. That changed in February, so that is now only relevant to anybody that is 16 to 18 at the start of the programme. They must have level 2 functional skills if they haven't already got their GCSEs. Now, we help to deliver that. We have functional skills tutors that work with us to deliver those level 2s. I think the important thing to remember is if somebody doesn't have functional skills, it will add time on to the amount of time it takes them to pass their apprenticeship. So an 8-month apprenticeship, potentially if people don't have functional skills, would add on an additional 3 months if they haven't got maths, and another 3 months if they haven't got English. That changing has been has had a massive impact, because apprentices aged 19 at the start of the programme have the option to opt in or opt out with the agreement of their employer at the start of the programme, and they don't have to have completed it by the time they get to endpoint assessment. Dave.
Sorry, I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball in this one for you, and you might not know the answer to this one. What about, because this is particularly on this diversity project that me and you've spoken about, we're about to take on our apprentice for that. We've got a couple of candidates in mind, and 2 of them speak Oromo as their first language. It's an Ethiopian dialect. How do we support that?
Caroline.
Sorry.
No, fine. Presumably there would be access to English as a second language tuition, which we could help you access and find, I'm sure. But presumably they're going to build their English skills very quickly, I would suggest.
We've been working with them already for 4 months, and just seeing the progress and change in their language, just because they're ridiculously intelligent and they're just picking up with these. But it's just really interesting things that have no translations, like carabiners and zip wires and stuff like that. And trying to find an Oromo speaker has just been crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. What age are they?
So we're deliberately going with over 18s.
Okay.
So they are 18.
Okay.
So if they're 18, they still need functional skills.
Exactly.
So it's 19 plus for.
Yeah.
That is a consideration. I'm at pains to say the removal of this barrier to those 19 plus, because that's what it always was, doesn't mean that there's a removal of functional skills input or the importance of functional skills. I mean, literacy and numeracy are right at the heart of what we do, and one of the great things about an apprenticeship, as opposed to not doing an apprenticeship, is that there is some formality to it. There is constant contact with a tutor that's going to pick up on spelling, punctuation, grammar, basic numeracy, and we provide support for English and maths throughout, whether or not individuals are going to sit a functional skills exam at the end. It's the exam that's been removed, basically. That's the way we want to think about it. And also there's a range of other support in place. So the learner support funds for those that need them. Anybody who's got additional needs, anybody who has emotional or welfare issues throughout the apprenticeship, there's financial and other support there for them as well. So there's a whole wraparound package for any individual to access an apprenticeship. So we'd encourage anybody to just ask us questions like Dave has.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you. That's awesome.
Cool. And that essentially is the changes in a nutshell. I suppose the last bit is kind of just looking at it in terms of, are there any questions, and start thinking from your perspective, how would it work for you? Well, what can we do to help support? More than happy to have conversations with people to kind of look at what this means from an operational perspective and how we can map and support that workplace development. Because from an apprenticeship perspective, they are amazing. They work. They've been proven to work, and they really do support the development of young people, and they support the skills development for employers. So yeah, it's kind of over to you,
Catherine.
Hi there, it's Sam here. Yeah, Catherine is here. She's just sort of cradling a wet span at the moment. If it's not the radio,
That's Will.
It's Ruby.
yeah, things you have to do to make a day work in the outdoors. Yes, I just want to say thanks, Brian, and thanks to all of the channel team for putting this together. It's really appreciated, you guys. You could have just put it out in a round robin email. So that's the sort of customer service we come to expect from you guys. You know, it's nice touch. It's nice you come on.
Oh, stop it, Sam. Honestly.
Oh, I've got to snooze. I've got to sort of work my way in there. It was just really just a couple of bits. There was about the skills packages. What is there sort of a minimum number of people you would, or apprentices you would look to put on those courses, or would that be done on a kind of a case by case, region by region basis?
Who's doing that?
I
Yes,
don't-
case by case, region by region, and I mean it is our sort of like USP to add those as value added. You know, because we're very fortunate that we've got such a skilled tutor team to be able to deliver those courses. It is something that we offer above and beyond sort of other providers, but it does need to be to fit in with, you know, some ratios and locations and accessibility. And yeah, Brian, were you going to add to that?
I think there's an element of and it depends on the cohort size and what qualifications it is, but depending on the number of people you've got, obviously we can put courses on for employers, and if we're mapping against a specific operational window, then there may be times where we go, well, actually we can book the course in for August at the beginning of the year, because we know that that's when you've got that window, and if we've got it in far enough in advance, it kind of, in a way, it almost helps the skills course delivery. So I think it's something we are looking at, but we need to understand the impact of these changes to be able to see how it's going to have an impact on skills courses.
Yeah, cool.
See what duration people are taking, where are the pinch points, etc., and making sure we've got the right people in the right place.
No, that's grand. You've always been really helpful. I mean, we anticipate a sort of, with this new, you know, with the shortened version, it's obviously going to be helpful. It might be that we're kind of looking at, we might be recruiting for, but we might go to sort of 5 or 6. So it's kind of, you know, yeah, it's good to know that. Thank you, Brian. Just a kind of unrelated one, but it just sort of triggered me, something you said earlier about the additional payment for a younger 16 to 18 apprentice.
Yeah.
Is that additional payment, is that paid on completion of, it's not done in stages, is it, that one?
Yes, it is. It's paid in 2 tranches.
Right.
If your planned program is 12 months plus, but 12 months, then you get 1 tranche after, I think it's 3 months, and then the second one at 272 days, something like that, she says, making it up. So off the top of my head. The thing you do need to be aware of, if you have chosen to plan your shorter duration of 8 months, the second payment does not happen. For a 16 to 18-year-old or a 19 plus with EHCP. So presumably this is going to be very small numbers, but just to make you aware, the government have said that for shorter programs, for those characters, 16 to 18, 19 plus with EHCP, the second payment would not.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Just a note about skills course calendaring. I mean, it's a dark art trying to design skills course provision for 40 plus employers, with some with, you know, 25 learners and some with 1 learner, you know, so it's constant entertainment for our team, but hopefully, he says, touching loads of wood, with a front-loaded block training cohort model, there will be some fixability in the calendar, as Brian mentioned, you know. So if somebody came to us, or somebody comes to us and says, you know, we want a 9-month program or a 10-month or 11-month program, we want it to be front loaded with, you know, a month of training, and we want these NGB elements in that first month, then then great. We've got something we can fit with there. And as with all our courses, currently, where there are spare places, those places are offered out to other employers who've got staff that might want them. If they're apprentices, then they'll get those as free to you as part of their funded provision. And if they're not apprentices and they're just your other staff, then they get a 40% discount on that course cost. So as a channel training partner, then you get a pretty a good kind of offer of those courses for anybody else as well. So yeah, we try and do our best to fill them up.
Darren, I think you had a question.
You've literally just answered it.
Oh.
I was going to ask, for example, like archery GB or something, where we're in a position we tried to take on apprentice, I think year before last, and it kind of failed at the very last hurdle. He pulled out, and we had, so this is kind of be a new venture for us. So we would only be taking potentially one on just as a trial, just to see how it works for us. Is really how those NGB qualifications fit in. So obviously we got an archery range where we are here and everything. So would your tutors come to us, or how? Obviously, because we're down on the south coast, because quite often we find so many courses that we want to put people on, they're in Cumbria, and we're literally not far from Brighton, and it's accommodation and travel costs and everything else on top of that. So how do those qualifications work? But the other one was going to ask about, if you did come to us, is could we put other members of our sort of casual staff in for those qualifications, which you've already sort of said is a possibility. But
yeah, absolutely. It's always the case with ones and twos that inevitably those apprentices will end up slotting into other courses. But we've got such a big national provision now that it's incredibly rare for us to not be able to find a course for an apprentice that's vaguely nearby and accessible and at the right time in their training. And if you've got a number of staff, including your apprentices, and we've got other people in the area, then sure, we can look at putting a course on at a particular location and filling it with your staff and others. It's just a very fine balancing act, really. If we've got the people who want to do the course, we can put it on. If not, inevitably some apprentices do have to move. But we try our hardest, Darren, that's all we can say.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Excellent.
Cool. Are there any other questions, or is there anything else that anyone wants to discuss? Cool. If you do at any point, just let us know. I will make sure that we make the slides accessible so that everybody can have a copy of them and you can kind of see what we've been through today. We'll probably put the recording on our website in case you want to watch it back at any time. I can't imagine that'll be the case, but just in case. And if anyone that has got any questions, if there's anything at any point that we can help with, please let us know. It'd be really good to talk to you about anything that you've got going on at the moment. And Dave, we'll look into your. That's one of the best questions that I've been asked before. I don't know about Ethiopian dialects, but I'm going to find out now.
No, it was a complete new one on me. And yes, how do you find out where an Oromo speaker comes from? But Darren, to answer that, where that apprenticeship that we're going to be starting there, where that'll be in just next to East Grinstead. So we'll have a single apprentice nearby to you, not far from Brighton. So we can tie together on a few different things and work with Jim and the team to sort of help that way.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's been absolutely brilliant. I appreciate you two taking the time out, and look forward to catching up with you all soon.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers all.
Thank you.